reached this part of the show, which we've got an interview, that it seems to be the flavour of the day. We've got the interview with the legendary Breakfast Club, which is based in New York, and goes out each and every day, it seems, and they seem to be able to capture all the big stars and the people, celebrities of the moment, and it doesn't get any bigger than this. Roxanne Shante is being interviewed together with Shantae Adams, who plays Roxanne Shante in the movie called Roxanne, which is now out on Netflix. It was out officially on the 23rd of March 2018. So we've got two of them in the studio talking about the film, and more time is given to Roxanne Shante and her life times and what's her views on hip-hop, views on life. So do part one now and part two next week. Really interesting interview about life in general, and she makes us think. Anyway, here we go.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the Guy. We are the Breakfast Club. We got some special guests in the building. First, a legend.
Yes, royalty, rap royalty.
Royalty, absolutely, from Queens, New York, Roxanne Shante.
Yes.
Please believe it.
Absolutely.
And we have a young lady who played Roxanne Shante in the new flick, Shantae Adams.
Yes.
Hello,
Now,
guys.
does her name have to be Shantae?
Isn't that something?
Was
That's
that
a
part-
requirement.
You know, I'm trying to tell you now, her parents put that together for me.
Wow.
Isn't that nice?
Absolutely.
She was born for the part.
Were you looking for that for real?
Like, really, we groomed her from birth. Who can say that they've done that?
But this
I
is
worked
exciting.
it out with her mom and dad. Like, listen, make me a Shantae.
To
So
play
when
me
we're ready
in
to
a
do
movie.
this.
My goodness.
No, but I've been so excited. We've been talking about the movie coming out on Netflix March 23rd, Roxanne,
Yes.
which I think is great that you guys decided to do. And I know Pharrell is one of the producers. So
Yes,
how
and
did that
Forrest
even
Whitaker.
come about?
Well, actually, I met Mimi Valdez and Nina Bon Jovi, and they approached me, and we were at an event, and I was hosting an event, and they were like, "Look, we want to make a movie," and I host quite a few events. I still work every weekend, so I do a lot of hosting. And so, some of the places you go, people will say things, and I was like, wow, this must be some really strong alcohol here, because like they're talking about, yeah, we're going to make a movie. And I'm
Right,
like,
right.
yeah, sure, we're going to make a movie. Let's do it. So I said, here, take my number, because there was something about that spiritual connection when you automatically meet with someone, and you know how it is when you're in the industry and you meet with people. Sometimes you could tell this is going to go through, and then sometimes you could tell when it's not. And that feeling that I got from them from the very first time they said it out their mouth, I knew it was going to happen.
And Mimi Valdez brought Hidden Figures to Pharrell.
Yes,
And she also, I remember her from editor-in-chief of Vibe magazine. So that was your
Yes.
first time meeting Mimi?
No, I had actually met Mimi before then. Of course, because, in the hip hop, world is very small. A certain level of it is very small. So we meet each other and we cross paths. But when I seen her again and she was discussing the whole fact of the movie with me, the next morning we actually met, had breakfast, and then it just went on from there.
Wow.
Dope.
And I mean, when I say that it went on from there, within 18 months, we're here.
I
Is
always
there
looked up
something
to
that
you.
okay.
I was going to say I always looked up to you when I was growing up, and I was
thank you,
trying to
sweetie.
think about it when I found out this movie was happening. Has there ever been like a beef between where a woman responds to a man that tries to play her, like with Roxanne with the UTFO crew when they first did the Roxanne song,
Right.
and then you responded? And I'm trying to think, in history, has that happened where a woman does like a diss record back to the guy that's talking ish?
Well, you know what? I'm not.
I can't think of one.
I'm sure Remy Ma has done one before.
Nah, I mean, Queen Latifah was talking about some guys we didn't know
But
on
it's a
UNITY.
specific
Right.
response to a diss record from men.
You know what? I don't know. Like, I guess I wouldn't be able to say. I mean, there has been some other response records throughout history, as far as like people would make. I don't want to call them parodies, but they would actually make certain response records. Like, "It's Good to Be the King" was a record, and then there was "It's Good to Be the Queen" came out behind it, and then I think Millie Jackson did a response record to some other record, "Get Into It," and then she came out with one. So no, but I think it wasn't really heard of until Roxanne's Revenge,
Right.
where everyone could really just be able to identify with the young girl walking down the street. If you're in the projects and you're dealing with that on a day-to-day basis, and being able to just respond like that, everyone put themselves in a position to be Roxanne.
Right.
Now, Shantae, did you have to do a crash course on all this stuff?
I did.
Hell yeah, she has.
Yes, she did.
She look like she's 19. Hell yeah,
Biggest
she
crash
did.
course of my life. I'm the youngest of 4, and I have 2 older siblings who are hardcore hip hop fans. They're from that era, and so my oldest brother and older sister, they were the people I called immediately and was like, "Hey, what you know about Roxanne Shantae?" And my sister, she's the oldest, and she's like, "I remember being in the mirror and like hearing this little girl on the radio for the first time and learning all these words and being like, I'm a rapper and I'm a girl," and then being such a big thing for the 80s. So yeah, they were like. They were my sources that I went to.
It's interesting how God works, though, because we just in this time of, like, woman empowerment, especially women of color, and that story, your story has always been a woman's empowerment story. Why do you think it happened now? Why do you think the universe lined it up like that?
Well, you know what? I think what it is that a lot of times certain messages need to have a certain push behind them. And when you throw certain things out into the universe, you're going to find that those things come back just at the perfect time. Because people would say all the time, like, okay, well, you know what? You haven't made a record in 30 years. No secret. You still tour, but you still, you know, you do venues and your hostings and everything like that. What would make a Roxanne Shantae movie come out now? And the thing about it is, it's because it's the woman's time now.
Right.
And though it has always been the woman's time, it's time to come into the forefront, time to show the strength, time to show what we're made of, also to have that story told. And now you have women of strength in order to be the voice for some women who feel they can't speak up. So this movie will serve that purpose, where they can sit back and say, okay, you know what? I was that little girl in the group home. I was that little girl who went through that. I was that little girl who had daddy issues, or I was that woman who went through depression and went through a heartache or a heartbreak. So it's a time for us to be able to see that story being told, not just told to each other, because we always tell each other the story.
Right.
You know, as women, we sit here, girl, let me tell you what happened to me today, or sister, let me have one of these sister talks with you. But now it was just time to let the world know. And so I think this is why the timing came about.
What made you give up hip hop? Because you were short lived with recording. What made you say, you know what, this is not for me?
It was not financially beneficial for me.
At the time.
At the time. Right. It is good now.
It's
Let me
good
take-
now, right?
yeah, let me take that back. Before the
At
universe
that
start
time.
changing the checks, let me make sure I take that one back.
Right.
But no, one of the things about it is that at that time, it was not financially beneficial for me. And I had a lot of responsibility. Not only was I already a parent, already had my son, but I was responsible for my sisters. So being responsible for family members, I needed things that were financially lucrative for me. And at that time, it wasn't. I was a battle rapper. I had no intentions of making records. It just so happens that Marley Marl, who happened to be one of the greatest hip-hop producers, lived across the street right above the laundromat. And I was going to do laundry. And he was like, listen, come and do a freestyle for me. And that's how this came about. There was no demo. There was no looking around for record companies. Everything literally came to me the same way how the movie came. So it's just about the things that take place in the universe. And then how she walked into my life. Like, just literally... I had my niece graduated from Carnegie Mellon, because now you have to understand, now she's perfectly trained. This is not something like, oh yeah, we just pick somebody. She was really literally made for the part. She graduated from Carnegie Mellon. What was it, a week before the movie?
About 5 weeks before we started shooting.
5 weeks before we started shooting is when she had just graduated. But basically, she only had how many days? 8 days?
8 days.
Before the film started, and did a wonderful job. And then breakout artists. Come on, breakout artists.
Yeah.
Breakout artists.
Thank you.
Were any of
Shantae,
your
you're from
nieces mad,
Detroit.
though?
I am.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm saying she's from Detroit too.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Was any of your nieces mad that they didn't get the role?
No, you know what it is? Because, no, they weren't, because my nieces, their major was in drama.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
I
that-
went to school and graduated with her niece.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
Yeah.
So no, my niece went for politics and political science and things like that. So no, they didn't want to do that. But are they in the movie? Yes.
Did you feel like, being in the music career, that you would never appreciate it like you should have been? Like you look at hip hop and they don't mention you that much as they should.
I mean, for me, I go back Salt and Pepper. Like when I think female rappers.
Right, and that's a problem.
I mean,
because
of
she
course,
was
I'm
way-
very familiar.
Right.
But I'm saying when people talk about female rap, it don't seem to go back no farther than Salt and Pepper.
Right. Well, do I? No.
Why not?
And the reason why is because, Roxanne Shantae has never looked or searched for the accolades from others. I've been very confident with that. I've always walked with a certain confidence. So I didn't need anyone to validate me. I validate myself every morning. So I didn't need validation from anyone. So I didn't need anyone to say, okay, well, Roxanne Shantae started this. If you know that you've started something, then there's no need for anyone to tell you what you've started. See, a lot of people need that validation, but I was blessed to already have that within myself, so I didn't need that. So when people say, oh, they're doing this hip-hop show, and I'm like, okay, that's great, and I've never been angry. See, and that's where the blessings come in, because I've never been an angry person. So I don't see others who have, achieved certain things and say, okay, well, you know what, that should have been mine. That should have been mine. That should have been mine. Because that is really a horrible stigma that they have on old school artists, that they feel like we're all angry, or we're all hungry, or we're all angry or mad, and we're not. So when you have ones like me, that's when opportunities like a movie comes along out of nowhere, a Netflix deal comes along out of nowhere, and people say, well, how did that happen? And you say, well, how could it not? Because I've always been able to wait my turn and understand that when it's time for Roxanne Shante, it's time for Roxanne Shante. And when it's time for others, it is time for me to be supportive and be supportive of others. And so that's what I do, and that's how I live life.
Now,
But
let
you
me
want
ask you
history to
this.
be accurate, though, right?
We want history to be accurate, absolutely, and that's the reason why we must tell our own stories. But we don't get the opportunity to do so. So, if you feel that sometimes hip hop, they'll say, well, females in hip hop started with Salt and Pepper. And honestly, the plateau that they took hip hop to, you must understand, before me, there was Chirac. So let's say Chirac had it in the park.
Right.
Then I took it from the park and I put it on wax.
Right.
Then I took it from, with me putting it on wax, Salt and Pepper took it to the stadiums. And then from the stadiums, Nicki took it to a certain level.
Arenas. National, right.
And then from arenas, let's just say Remy took it to merchandising and branding. And then, Cardi took it to, pop charts and this one. So everyone comes in and makes their contribution, and you need to understand where you are your contributor, where you contribute the most. So if mine was the beginning, if it was my job to hold the door open, somebody else's job to walk in, somebody else's job to sit at the desk, and the other person's job to make the deal, then so be it.
That's real.
It's when you come out of that,
right?
That's when the problem starts.
But everybody gets celebrated. We want to make sure you do as well.
Thank you
Cardi
so much.
does. Nicki, Foxy.
Well, she got a movie.
But yeah, she does have a movie. About time, right?
Well, now let me ask you some questions, because I definitely, like I said, grew up listening to Roxanne Shante and the whole UTFO crew. So for people who don't know the story, right, how did the diss record come about? Because in my eyes as a child, I thought you really was going at them. I didn't know it was like an orchestrated type of thing where they knew the
You
diss
explained the
record
full
was
story.
coming.
There's a lot of kids out there that have no idea what you're talking
That's why I'm asking
about.
her to
Okay.
explain it now. So can you talk about how it actually came about and what happened?
Okay. Well, I had just recently had returned out of the group home, which is no secret. Most people know that. So one of the things about it was being in Queensbridge Public Housing, which is the largest housing project in the world. There's always going to be music. There was always music around. So DJ Molly Mall, who happened to be one of the greatest producers, lived above the laundry. So I was going to do my laundry one day. He called out the window. He was like, listen, Shiny, I heard, because they call me Shiny. Listen, Shiny, I heard that you a great battle rapper. Come up here. I got this beat. I want to hear you spit something on it. When I came to his house, he was playing the big beat, which was boom, boom, bap, boom, boom, bap. So I said, he's like, yeah, you heard that new Roxanne record? And I was like, yeah. He's like, listen, spit something for me real quick. I said, okay. Well, my name is Roxanne. Don't you know? So it was a complete freestyle, 7-minute freestyle, because I was known to be very well at telling stories that made sense.
Right.
So he was like, okay, we gave her a subject. The subject was Roxanne. She created Roxanne. I left it alone. Went back downstairs, completely doing my laundry. The next day, in the middle of the night, rather, someone had called me because he was on another radio station at the time, and he had played the record on the radio. And they called my house in the middle of the night. Now, I come from a time when there was only one phone in the house. One phone,
and you can't answer
and
that
was like by the kitchen with that long cord that rang really loud. So, I'm racing to the phone because it's like, I'm hoping nobody's crank calling or anything like that, because, me and my mom's, it was like one of those moments at the time. So I grabbed the phone. They're like, are you on the radio? I hung up. And I remember that whole entire night sitting there by the phone to make sure, because you had to pinch it out to make sure it didn't ring.
I remember that.
Yeah, because if you kept it pinched in, it's still gonna ring. And if you held the thing down, it was still gonna ring.
Right.
So you had to just pinch it out. No slide, no lever. So, and I pinched it out, and I'm standing there, and I was saying to myself, like, wow, I wonder what I sound like on the radio. The next day, when I walked out of my building, I was Roxanne Shante.
Damn.
Wow.
That fast.
He was on BLS then, right?
No, he was on WHBI, where you had to have the hanger and put the hanger in the window and try to tune the radio station. So it was one of those radio stations that I guess one of the late night, after midnight type stations. But you would stay up because this was the love of hip hop. Everyone would stay up late at night, and you would have the radio turned down so low so that you could record the show, because you couldn't play it loud. That's respectful for homes. It's like back in the days when you couldn't play your radio as loud as you wanted to any time of night. So you would listen to the radio and you would record the show, so everyone would record it, and they recorded it that night.